Love's beautiful, but let's be real, it's not always easy. It can bring out our deepest fears, our strongest desires, and sometimes our most confusing patterns. Welcome to Love Better, a space for honest, soul-deep conversations about relationships, attachments, and what it really means to love and be loved. I am Shazmin Bank, and if you've ever questioned why love feels so complicated, you are not alone. Let's unpack this together. Ever looked at your past relationships and you've thought, why do I just keep ending up with the same kind of toxic person? Well, you're not alone, and today we are breaking this cycle together. And this just isn't about bad luck. There's psychology behind being in a trauma bond, why we attract the toxic partners that we do, and we're also going to look at how we can walk away from these kinds of relationships and attract a better partner. This conversation was inspired by a beautiful lady on Instagram that sent me a DM, and this was her message, which she allowed me to share with you, but I'm going to keep her name anonymous. Hey Shaz, so I've been in this loop where I'm with somebody, more so in romantic relationships, and I want to give you a backstory. So I'm in 5 months of a 2-year relationship, and the relationship was turbulent to say the least. Prior to me getting into this relationship, the most recent one, I was 5 months out of another emotionally abusive relationship, and I'd promised myself I would stay a year without getting into any other relationship. But I broke that promise to myself. And then 3 months into this new relationship, the second one, I had seen red flags and everything in my spirit was telling me to end it. But I turned those red flags pink because my mind was telling me that I might be looking at it with the lenses of the previous relationship. And that was another betrayal to self. I'm asking myself, why did I let it get to 2 years? And what am I not learning? Then I come to learn that my self-esteem is so low, and I can't wrap my head around it because I'm like, how? These two people I dated are so different from each other, starting from their ages, their appearances, but I feel like I dated the same person with an updated version of themselves, and the most recent relationship was emotional and physically abusive. I hate that I let me get through it because I knew everything in me was telling me 3 months in, this was not the right relationship, and yet I stayed. I feel I have betrayed myself so much, and I've been for the longest time knowing it was me. And I'm trying to get back to me, but the pain is, So this conversation today, we are going to dive deep into toxic relationships. Why do we get into toxic relationships? What is a toxic relationship? What is a trauma bond? The attachment style that is most likely to kind of situations. And then how do we move out from situations like this to be able to fall in love with ourselves and eventually attract a more secure partner? So I want you to remember that we very rarely, in a situation where we end up with somebody toxic, do we seek for happiness, because we unconsciously just seek what was familiar. And what was familiar is the way we grew up and the way we were loved by a parent. The love that showed up very inconsistent. The love that we had to work very hard to be able to feel. The love that a parent showed that could have been abusive, could have had name calling, could have had a parent that was very immature to be in that role at that time. They were emotionally more fulfilled with where their lives were or were not, the constant screaming and shouting in the house, the fear, the unsafety that you grew up with, probably having to grow up as well, parenting your own parents through their fights, or parenting your own siblings because your parents were not emotionally available to be able to do that for you. So your home environment was very unstable. Love was not something that just came very naturally, very easy. You were not recognized and seen in the way that you would have loved to, which was just simply for being who you were. You were not praised and adored for just simply being who you were. You were probably ridiculed as a child, or you were probably ignored, or you could have grown up with a narcissistic mother or father where one parent was competing for, your attention, and the other parent was pitting you and triangulating you against your brothers and your siblings. And so you grew up in an environment that was very toxic, where you really learned to be more quiet, really be the child that sat in the corner, that didn't stir the boat, because the boat you're already growing up in is already so rocky. You don't know when the next fight is going to erupt at home, when the next parent is coming back into the house screaming, raging because, they're high or they've consumed so much alcohol, and you don't know when's the next time something's breaking in the house, and your nervous system learns to develop this hypervigilance to notice the little tension on the table, the tension in the house, the tension in the car, the tension walking or shopping with a parent. Your nervous system just learns from a very young age that to be hypervigilant means it's going to keep you safe, because you can notice when the tone's off, the mood is off, or something's going to go wrong because of similar patterns that you lived in. So you're always up in anxiety. And when we grow up this way in our childhood, we have to be able to remember this is not to blame a parent, because our parents definitely do the best that they can. But this is also creating room and space to be able to say that the way you did grow up was painful, and being able to acknowledge that as a child you didn't really have a choice, and your mind didn't know it had a better option or there was another option. Maybe you even grew up comparing yourself to your friends who were closer to their parents, or their parents that were just so loving, and you sort of wished, oh my God, I wish my friends' parents were my parents and they loved me this way. So you have to remember that this becomes very familiar to you when you grow up in an environment that is so rocky and so hostile and so unpredictable and so unsafe emotionally. And love is just not something that's securely expressed, and conflict is not something you grew up watching being sorted and, maturely handled. You watched people scream, shout, walk away, stonewall, leave, get divorced. This becomes your blueprint for what in your adult life you will think love is. And so when I say we unconsciously seek what's familiar, we very rarely will seek happiness, is because as an adult, I want you to think about this. You are in a stadium, and I want you to think of like a blinker above your forehead. And you're in this stadium filled with millions of people, and your blinker is blinking red. And the people in that stadium that are attracted to the red blinker are the only people that are going to be able to see your red blinker and be attracted to you, because that's the signal you put out. Let's say that your red blinker is your body doesn't feel worthy of being loved in a safe environment. And let's say your red blinker is attracting everyone that's going to recreate this toxic love for you in your adult life. Those are the people that you're going to pull. But when you start to heal and you start to move into a more secure aspect of your attachment style, you could be in the same stadium with the same amount of people, and your blinker is now green. The people who are attracted to the red blinkers are not noticing you anymore. You now will attract people who will only notice the green blinker. So I want you to understand, you could be in this stadium and you have this red blinker on. So you go and date this one person and the relationship doesn't work out. And you break up and you say, I'm not doing this anymore. And now you get lonely and you fear you can't go through being alone this long, and you're craving the validation, attention, and reassurance that you're not able to provide for yourself. And so you jump into a relationship again. And again, you're going to attract somebody who sees the red blinker, but now they're a different age and they dress different and they work in a different office and they drive a different car, but they still have the core wounds and principles to love you the same way everyone else you date. As long as your blinker is red, you are going to attract. So we have to remember that if a parent was inconsistent or a parent was very dismissive, we will gravitate towards emotionally unavailable partners. Why? Because that feels like home. Your body is going to crave what it knows. So if love equaled inconsistency, that's exactly what your nervous system is just going to be able to seek out. Let's look at what is a toxic relationship, or what are some of the traits that define toxic relationships? So it's two wounded people coming into a relationship and they've never worked on their core wounds, and they're going to sort of create this sort of a dynamic. You will probably attract somebody who will dismiss all of your needs. They don't have the time, the capacity, or the emotional IQ to be able to sit and discuss what you need, because they know deep down inside they cannot fulfill your needs. They don't have the capacity to be there for themselves and fulfill their own needs. How are they going to be able to do that for you? And so that's why every time you bring up your needs or you talk about what you would love more of in that relationship, they belittle you, they criticize you, and it ends up in a fight. And you always end up thinking, how did we end up fighting when all I wanted to do was connect with you and just tell you what I want more of, or what I'm not so happy about in this relationship, or how I'm feeling? How does it always end up in a fight? It's because they are conditioning you to learn, this is not what you bring up with me. I want you over time to learn that every time you bring up a need, it will end up in conflict, and the conflict leaves you in such deep confusion and so much pain that you rather eventually stay in the better pain of never having your needs met and being resentful than the pain of trying to articulate what you want to someone and then sitting there crying in a bathroom or in your room all alone and no one's there to attend to you. So they completely dismiss your needs, and then they have this lack of empathy and validation towards how you feel. They are not there for you. You feel that you're in this relationship all alone, that your core needs are just not respected at all. And they will gaslight, guilt trip you for having these feelings, for having these needs. Because when you have needs and you want to grow and you want to set the standard for a relationship, you're reminding this other person that they don't have the adequacy to be in a relationship with somebody like you. You remind them that they fall short. You remind them that they're going to fail. So instead of somebody growing on this side and being able to say, this relationship's teaching me what my shortcomings are, they rather teach you how to live in the boundaries of their shortcomings. They rather teach you to be able to lose a part of yourself and manipulate you to lose that part of yourself, because it's easier for them to deal with that version of you. So you might end up feeling unbelievably drained. You'll feel energetically drained. You feel like this relationship eventually always brings you down, and all you're doing is giving, and you're sort of feeling like the more I give, the less I feel I'm getting in return. And the more I'm giving, the more I'm just hoping that they will be able to see me. At some point, this person will understand that I'm the only person that has loved them in this way. And this cycle is something I will be able to break. So you almost stay in a relationship where eventually they're able to give you a little love and a little recognition, and that fills you because you feel, okay, I got a little bit out of this person. So maybe the relationship is not so bad, and feeling drained isn't something that's so terrible, because eventually this person's going to realize nobody can love them the way that I do. Nobody can sacrifice the way that I do. In fact, I can prove to this person nobody has ever sacrificed for this person. This person's lost friends, they've lost work colleagues, they've lost jobs, they've lost finances, their family doesn't talk to them, but here I am. And we do that because that's what we had to do in our childhood. So we are somehow back in a relationship with a parent. Like, I need that to sink in. If you take a moment right now and you think about your childhood and what it was like to be with a parent, whose love did you crave the most? Who did you have to be to get that love? Who could you not be in order to get that love? Because if you were really who you were, this parent would ridicule you or push you away or bully you, or you grew up with a narcissistic parent that just invalidated you completely and robbed you of your self-worth that you didn't even know you were entitled to have. So you grew up so undeserving of love. So if you pause for a minute and you think, this is the way I grew up, with a mother, a father, or a caregiver, and the relationships that I've had in my life are almost a recreation. So I could have grown up with a mother that never saw me, that was narcissistic, that wanted to see me only when she won. We never discussed issues. However I felt as a child in that relationship did not matter. I had to play small, but in the end, that's my parents, so I have to love them. I have to keep showing up. I have to do the right thing because I'm almost culturally bullied into feeling you can never be let down by a parent. And then suddenly you go and date or marry the same parent where you show up unseen or you're only seen when it benefits them and you make them look good. They don't discuss issues and conflict. You're in a relationship where everything's swept under the rug, exactly like in your family. Conflict was never resolved. You learn to smile and move past it if that parent was in a good mood. So now when your partner's in a good mood, everything's great and you're terrified to rock the boat and ask for anything. Almost like if it's a great day and you did ask for something, you're feeling down, you're feeling sad, or you are in a bad mood because of a couple of things that have been happening in that relationship and you ruin that day, then they take you on the guilt trip or say, we can't even have a good day. And now you start to carry the guilt and shame and the confusion of, I'm the person always bringing this relationship down, not them. Look at them. They're happy. They want to be happy with me. So they almost confuse you in this relationship. So if we also look at why do we unconsciously get into this relationship, it's because it's very familiar. They just remind you of a parent's love. They remind you that love is distant, love is neglectful, and when you do eventually meet this partner, you feel like, I'm home. This is love. I'm just drawn to the person who created those wounds for me ages ago. And it's almost like they're this magnet. And you feel that if you get this unavailable partner to finally show up and finally you can fix them and you can show them their potential and their worth, then you are worthy, which means your worth is based on how they treat you, how they see you, how they validate you, how they love you, how they make time for you, how they show up for you. So if you heal them, then you're enough. Because if you could have healed your parent, maybe you could have changed your childhood, but you couldn't heal a parent. To be loved by your parent, you just had to be who you were and then not be who you were and then grow up in such confusion that you lost the self-identity. You get pulled away from what you truly deserve. So you end up living this life always questioning, am I enough? And if somebody abandons me, if this person I'm with who's toxic walks away from me, then something's wrong with me. They left me. So I'm unworthy of their love, even though their love is a heartbreak. It's constant heartbreak. So if you had these caregivers that are abusive, hurtful, they've basically coded and wired you to be able to love a certain way. And you have all this unresolved trauma, deep patterns of belief that love is not safe, or it's safer to be alone, or I have to do so much to get seen. And that's when we settle for the people that make us feel the way that we do. We settle for love because this is the best you can do. You can't seem to get into relationships with better people. You start to look at the history of the people you've dated or the person you just walked away from, and you end up feeling, oh my God, like there's a pattern. And maybe the pattern, the common denominator in all these relationships is me. I mean, could everyone really be bad? And not that they are bad, because our minds are not taught to think, could everyone be so wounded? And could I be so wounded that I just can't seem to switch off this red blinker and I'm attracting everybody that's just comfortable? I'm attracting a love that's safe, but is not safe for me. It's just safe because it feels so familiar. So relationships like this go very well hand in hand with people that are anxiously attached, because people that are anxiously attached are people that grew up to be people pleasers. You're always about keeping the other person happy, even at your own expense. So toxic people will use this to manipulate you because you do not know how to say no. You always show up. You will drop the things you actually want to do because it puts a smile on their face and it makes you feel needed with how valuable they feel that you are. You know, you're very generous with your time. The person you could have been dating, if you stop to think about it, will know that you always had time for them. And it was never given back to you the same way, but you were someone that, with your love and your empathy, you create time to listen to them, to show up for them, to be around them, to hear their problems. In fact, whenever they're down and sad, you forget about how you feel and you go rescue them. You go fix their lives. And they know that. They know they can rely on your generosity. You have this rescuer knight personality because you are the fix-it. You are going to save people. You are going to save this person from themselves. And you forget that even lifeguards, when they are rescuing somebody, they turn around and tell the person that if you grab onto me and you pull me down, I'm going to have to let you go because we're both going to die. So you're going to have to go at my speed. You're going to have to trust me. And you're not going to have to pull me down because I'm going to be the one that needs to pull you out. I'm rescuing you. But when you're anxiously attached, you're the rescuer at the cost of yourself. You're drowning, you're miserable, you're unhappy, but you're this deep empath that has all these beautiful excuses for their behavior. And you spin the stories and you change the situations because you have this ability to fix people. And if you pause and think about a relationship that you were in or you're currently in, you'll see that the person you're with will use this to their advantage because they know you will always pause to save them and solve things for them. They bring their problems to you. They bring their low days to you. They will come to you and say, I need a hug. I need you to hug me. I need you to give me kisses. I need your attention. They're almost always taking, and you feel like your role is being played because your nervous system feels like it's doing what it did for a parent. And you almost feel that, oh, okay, if I can be there for them enough and I can love them, I can fix them, I can rescue them, I can be their savior. Nobody has ever taken the time out to do this for this person, then they will really see me. And eventually they will love me. And the cycle that I do not even know I'm in will break because you have so much hope. And that's what you live in. You live in a relationship of hope, very far from happiness. You have to, fight this confrontation that you always want to have with them. You can't really show up for yourself, and they get away with bad behavior around you because they know that you don't like fighting. You won't fight for yourself. You won't stand up for yourself. They've learned how to bully you enough that blurred your boundaries. They learned the little screaming and being upset would trigger you, and then they come and apologize and cry and feel so bad about it. And you feel, wow, they're communicating. I mean, they behave terribly, but look at them. Here they are now saying sorry. And they bought me flowers and chocolates and just showed up and spent the whole day with me and loved on me. And you know what this starts to form? It starts to form the trauma bond. Also, if you're anxiously attached, you're very loyal. So here's the thing. You stay in abusive relationships way longer than you should because you are too loyal to leave. It's the leave no man behind. You cannot leave this person that you perceive to be broken and wounded, and it's your responsibility to fix them and tape them up together and get them to stop bleeding on other people. And it's being in a relationship with 1,000 paper cuts. You just have no idea by now in the relationship. You are burning, you are hurting, you are getting destroyed. But because you're so loyal, you do not leave. And you also could have grown up in a home where you saw this exact dysfunction between your parents, and neither of them left. They stayed. So it was almost like, they stayed through the dysfunction. My parents complained about each other bitterly, but they didn't walk out. So you don't really leave. you stay in the situation, you tolerate it, and you complain about it, but you never know what the ability to stand up for yourself and walk out is like. And then you're also extremely very open. You're so honest, and if you think about it, you'll see that you will be attracted to somebody that does lie, that tells a lot of pokies, that's not honest about their behavior, even to the smallest things. It's so easy for them to lie. And you notice that. You also notice that you treat people with a lot of care and empathy. And you also notice you almost have like this intuition, this blinker onto how people feel because you're so hypervigilant. It's actually your superpower. Never lose it. You're so hypervigilant to the people in a room, to how people are feeling. You're hypervigilant in your friends groups. You can tell when someone's a little off, when someone didn't like a comment, when someone's withdrawn, when somebody's not really there. You sort of have this hypervigilance linked with the intuition. And that's why even in the DM I received, she was feeling her intuition telling her something's off, but her empathy overrides her intuition. And it's not her empathy for herself. It's her empathy to save the other person so that they can save her. Do you see the pattern? It's not about standing up for yourself because nobody taught you how to do that. So you're so honest, you're so open, and that's what the partner you're with finds so attractive. They love that you're open and honest because that benefits them to know that you will never cheat, you will never leave. You let them know exactly how you feel. You tell them exactly where you are in the relationship. You talk about exactly how fed up you are. They are taking all of this and learning how to keep you in the relationship in the most minimal way possible. They don't take the information you give them and say, how do I grow so that my partner can never feel pain like this? No, they take all this information from you and say, I'm going to now know instinctively how to keep them in this relationship with little pockets of love. So this is now what leads to the trauma bonding being formed. You are literally in love with somebody that idolized you because in the beginning of the relationship, there's passion, there's chemistry, there's sexual attraction. They want to be with you. They see you. They feel you. They call you. They love bomb you. The relationship moves so fast. There is nothing boring about that relationship. And in them idolizing you comes them devaluing you and then disregarding you. They are so inconsistent with their love with you. And when they devalue you, that's when you start to feel, wait, this person loved me, saw me, adored me, made me finally feel seen after so long. They made me feel like I belong. So when they disregard me or they devalue me, it means I did something wrong, not them. It means I need to work harder for their love to get idolized again. And this is a pattern if you're anxiously attached where you fall into seeking constant validation from them, never from yourself. Because when they love bomb you and they idolize you, it is so powerful because you have never felt a love like that before. Even though your intuition and your gut is telling you something's not right. I can't put my finger on what it is about this person, but I know I shouldn't be in a relationship with them. But they've also seen me in a way that I have craved to be seen. So I don't want to walk away and I do not want to leave this relationship. And now you start to go into what becomes the love addiction. And it's true. You are chemically bonded to this person because you are craving the next high and the next low. You rather fight and scream with this person because that's the only time you get connection. And the disconnection is in your silence, in you being the good girl or the good boy in the relationship. The silence is you not rocking the boat, not bringing any issues up, behaving. All the things you did for a parent, you are now doing for a partner. And the minute you start to have an opinion, they devalue you and they disregard you and repeat and repeat. And the cycle repeats and repeats. And that's what creates this dysfunctional cycle. It's this intense, amazing love. It's overwhelming. Then they devalue you. And it's almost what anxious and avoidant lovers go through. The same pattern. So your attachment style will re-trigger this trauma bond that you think is chemistry, but is actually keeping you very trapped in a relationship with them. So it's almost like this chaos that you experience as a child. So, as a child, you justify your parents' bad behavior. You can't believe your parent or your caregiver is harmful. Your mind doesn't go there. So the parent's okay, the parent's right. And therefore you attract the same partner that will treat you in the same way. And then you turn around and say that they're okay, they're right, they're not doing anything wrong. So it's almost like when you're kind of gambling, and if you go to a slot machine and you put a coin in and you press the handle, you get this little reinforcement back, because sometimes you win a little money and it keeps you wanting to go and go and go. And other times, it'll be a lot of money and you think, wow, because I kept going and going and going, look at the reward I got. So I'm not going to back down. And you start to see inconsistent rewards as love. So they're far and wide between each other. And that only also happens when you reach a point and you say, I'm done enough. I want to walk out. I'm leaving you. And suddenly they know how to love you. Suddenly they know how to promise you the world. Suddenly they're fully present to you. Suddenly they're giving you all these promises that are what you wanted to hear and live. But you're so intoxicated by this flood of love that you don't realize all the promises that they're giving you are not even actions. They've never been actionable. They can live up to the hype for about a week or two, and then it's right back to where the relationship was again. But then you crave the low as well, because in the low you go and seek out the big fight, and then you fight and you get this deep connection with them, which is not deep connection, but it is for the relationship you're living right now. And that leaves you feeling empty and low, but on a dopamine high. And then again, they don't want to lose you, because who's going to put up with them and love them the way you love them? And this is how you end up living a trauma bond, because trauma bonded people make so many excuses for their abuser. They grew up in a tough childhood. A lot of the times they have an extremely avoidant behavior or attachment style. They are narcissistic, but I can't sort of see the narcissism at all because they were never loved. And so I need to love them. If I can parent them, then they will be okay. And you start to play this role of parent, PA, business partner, nanny, caregiver, sexual provider. You are all these different roles because you don't know which role is going to get you the reward from them. You don't know which role will have them see you. And they do this. They have you switch up all your different characters by praising all these different parts of you, but you don't know which part they want. So you're moving, you're shape-shifting from person to person to person to constantly please them, being stuck in this trauma bond with them while you're making excuses for how they grew up and they didn't mean it and they're just stressed, they're going through a hard time and they lost somebody and they lost their job and finances are really hard and it's just COVID and now it's post-COVID. And so you actually gaslight yourself into staying in a bad relationship. You have to justify their bad behavior to be there. And if I ask you a very honest question, if a friend came to talk to you about this kind of a relationship, the advice you give them would not be the advice you give yourself. And this is why you don't talk to people about this relationship anymore. You do not open up. You do not go there. It's too hard. It's too painful because you are in a pattern where you've made so many excuses for this person. You cannot see that you're in a toxic relationship because this person in your mind is on this pedestal. And when they do love you in the little ways that you want, in the best ways they can love you to their wounded capacity, you have never been loved like that before. So that love is delicious. It makes you feel so full. Lauren Eden said it beautifully. She says, when you are not fed love on a silver spoon, you will learn to lick it off knives. That is very powerful for the dynamic that you will be in when you're with somebody who's in a toxic relationship. You have to be able to remember that when you're with somebody like this, for you to be able to leave means you have to admit the relationship you're in is not healthy. But you can't really go there because this person to you is the world. You didn't have a love like this growing up. Nobody saw you to this level of capacity. And I just want you to take a moment to just really hold room for yourself, because that's hard. I really want you to take a moment while listening to this podcast and put your arms around yourself and hug yourself, because that's not easy. It's not easy to be in a relationship where you really crave so much love from somebody you desperately want to love you back. And there should be no shame and guilt around that, and yet there is. So you will justify everything that they do just to stay in this relationship because you're terrified to be alone. You believe in them, future faking it. All the promises they make, how they're going to change, how they want to love you. They're going to go for therapy because now you want to leave. They want to marry you. They want the children. When things are extremely hard, it's time for the third baby or the second child or the first child, because somehow they actually know if you had a child, the focus goes off them and you are finally just busy. Anything you could do that has you not focus on how the relationship's not working is something they're for. But then at the same time, they don't want to share your attention with the child or anyone, because when they need you, they need you. They're not there to support the different stage of life you may be in. You're going to keep having these same fights with this person and there's just zero resolution. You're in this unbelievable loop. The same fight on them cheating, the same fight about money, the same fight about their family, the same fight about a lack of support. And the more you have these conversations, the more it's exhausting, because you're trying to prove to them how you've stayed, how you've understood them, how you're trying to work through this problem. But if they could just get their part, then this relationship will work. And even if people tell you you're in this unhealthy relationship, you're with somebody that's justified and taught you how you're not. Because they come and apologize, and their apologies, they're brilliant at apologizing. They can throw an apology out all the time, and their apologies almost to suffocate you, to silence you. It's okay, sorry, enough. It's not, I am so sorry, please explain to me how I made you feel and how I can make you feel better. Their apologies are cold and hot, because when they want to say sorry and they want to cry and the tears are flowing, it confuses you. You think, oh my God, they got it. This person got it. Oh, we're going to have the relationship of our dreams now. They are empathetic. They're crying. They feel sorry about it. They're listening to me today when I'm talking about how I feel. They're being present to that. And it leads you in this confusion of, wait, I'm in a relationship with someone who's unavailable yet available at times. And that is painful, because your mind is like, but we had these amazing chats a couple of times this way. That's why I stayed. But then my mind's confused with this fight, why they're saying sorry and getting angry that I'm not okay with just the apology. I need to voice how I'm really feeling. I need to get rid of some of the pain, the anger, the way this particular incident has left me feeling, but they don't have room for it. You can see in their body language, it's, I have to go for this meeting, I have to go to work, I haven't slept, I'm not feeling well, you need to push this conversation, you need to raise the ante. Anytime it comes to what you need, you are doing something wrong. But when they want to say sorry, when they want to apologize, when they're needing your love and your attention, your affection, that apology is the juiciest apple you've ever had. But suddenly when you're craving the juice of that apple again, they're nowhere to be seen. And you have this deep fear to leave, because you have this self-doubt inside of you is, what if I'm wrong? Because you've lived in this confusion with them for such a long time. And they've had you believe, oh, leave me. Let's see who'll love you. Walk, go. Let's see you survive. You're always going to come back to me. You are nothing without me. And living in a situation like that long enough, when you don't have self-worth and you don't know what you deserve and you are deeply anxiously attached, that's going to have you stay out of fear. because nobody else can love you. So you are their one stop. Anything they need in any shape or form, they come to get from you. But you have to hide your feelings, your vulnerabilities. They've taught you this will upset them. You can't go to them about how you're feeling about anything. So you learn that in me being invisible and just loving them the way they need, that's what keeps this relationship afloat. So you vow to yourself that you're not gonna, share what's happening because they already know what's wrong, but they never share. And then they're gonna defend their behavior so much that it makes you feel like something's wrong with you. They could talk to outsiders because on paper, they're perfect. On paper, the way they talk to you or what they say, if you read that to somebody, they'd be like, oh, there's nothing wrong with that. But their tone, the actions that don't follow, whatever people don't read between the sentences, that's your experience that no one can take away from you. That's your truth. But you don't get to live in that truth because the truth is masked by them making you feel like you are too much. So as an anxious person, I want you to think about, you do attract your parent. You're terrified you're going to be alone. You're so terrified you will be abandoned. And you don't know, and you've never learned how to self-soothe. You have a lack of this relationship to yourself, a lack of purpose within yourself. And you've also lost a lot of friends. You've lost your own sense of identity in being in this relationship. You've lost deep connections with people. You've moved into being very needy and clingy because this relationship leaves you so uncertain and so unsafe that you can't take the uncertainty. You're unbelievably people-pleasing. You're so focused on everyone else except yourself. And so you end up in this loop where you seek validation only externally. You don't know that you have everything within you to validate yourself and hold space for yourself and hold space for your pain and absolutely understand that whatever you're going through is right and it matters and it's okay for life to pause so that you can feel these deep, painful emotions that you're feeling. Anxious people will threaten to leave, which is something you might do, and then you've learned that's when they chase you. Or you might make your partner jealous with somebody else in the relationship, and that's all to test how much do they love you, how much does this person want to be with you. But when you're in a secure, healthy relationship, you don't have to test the other person because you just know. You are so desperate for a connection externally that you've lost the pathway and the connection within for yourself. You've never felt good enough. You feel unlovable. You feel alone. And you learning to be able to heal this anxious attachment that you feel is going to put you in a place where you feel, I'm finally starting to see myself. I'm starting to feel who I am. I'm starting to nurture and come home to my authentic self. So you have to be able to start to find what your identity could be. You've got to come back to the hobbies and passions that you had. You have to grab your support system that's outside of this relationship, and you need to be able to listen to what your people are really telling you. I want you to be able to move into a place where you learn to self-soothe. You can pull out this feeling chart that you can Google, and it gives you all these different feelings, and you can start to learn to name your feelings and sit with them and understand them and notice, where's this feeling in my body? How uncomfortable is this feeling? Where can I sit and speak to this feeling? Does it have a color? Does it have a shape? What is it trying to tell me? How can I nurture this very valid feeling of emotion within me? How can I self-soothe my nervous system to know that it's safe with me attending to how I feel? I want you to also ask yourself better questions that allow you to feel so much more connected to yourself. Questions that move you away from feelings of shame or guilt from being in a relationship where you are always attracting a toxic person, or you're in a relationship and struggling to leave a toxic person, but you start to get to know what your needs are and you find a voice around them, and then you build a deeper sense of importance around who you are. Because I want you to remember, you do not need permission to leave. You do not need to prove anything to anybody, and you do not need to justify anything to anybody. When you start to develop a stronger connection with yourself and trust your intuition, you really start to listen to what it's saying. You start to listen when something doesn't feel right, something feels off, and you also learn a power in silence and watching who the other person is without you saving them from themselves, without you rescuing them from their bad behavior. You get so uncomfortable in the pain of seeing how they really treat you and how they show up. And you no longer engage in a reaction with them. You start to move into a place of just noticing who they are for who they are, not who you want them to be, not how you go back to them telling them how they should have reacted, how the relationship should be. And this helps you to stop blaming yourself, but also helps you to stop eventually blaming them. It puts you in a place where you can fully take responsibility for the relationship for where it is. And you learn to slowly start to grow the self-worth that was not honored in this relationship, because you truly deserve to create the life that you want. But you have to start to believe that you deserve the life you want. You have to start to develop the confidence to know this relationship's not good for me. This relationship is not healthy for me. I have triggers, I have wounds, and this relationship is going to teach me and show me that there are things within me that I need to heal, because I'm attracting this person. I'm keeping them in my life. I'm part of this vicious cycle. This cycle cannot happen if it's one-sided. I'm playing my role to keep this relationship going as well, or to keep attracting the same people. So you have to be okay to grieve the good that was in the relationship, but also the painful ways you were treated, the behaviors that you tolerated. You have to grieve the hope that they would have changed. And you want to start to feel good again about your self-care, which is all about connecting you to yourself. You need to be able to start telling yourself that I truly matter. What would happen if I took all of this energy and stopped focusing it on when to talk to them, how to talk to them, living on eggshells, and I just paused to start healing my anxious attachment that's attracting all these toxic partners who are just truly there to teach me. They're this shadow where they're showing you a problem. They're a mirror. And the mirror is never there to create conflict with you. A mirror is not there to fight with you. It's simply there to show you a reflection. So we could say that you're kind, you're soft, you're considerate, and then you go attract someone that's self-centered and brash and rude and grandiose. And you could react thinking, oh my God, how did I attract such a cold, closed-off person? But really, your reaction should be to the fact that you've buried a desire inside of you to be more assertive, something that you've repressed to maintain this image of being the good person, being the good girl, the good boy, the image of being nice. So the mirror of this relationship is showing you what part do you not want to see. So if we move away from blame, your brain seeks what's familiar, and that relationship's going to show you what's familiar. And if this relationship is a mirror, then what is it trying to bring out in you? What is this deja vu you have of attracting somebody in your life or dating people that are your ex all over again? Again, it's showing you that you have to heal patterns within yourself. And until you understand what these beliefs are, these patterns are, these core wounds of yours that I mentioned earlier are, your unconscious mind is always going to look for what's familiar as opposed to the uncertainty of a new safe love. Because remember, new safe love is boring. New safe love is somebody that creates room for you, and you're not getting the love addiction from a secure partner anymore. You're not chasing, you're not blending in, you're not wearing 1,000 masks. A secure love creates room for you to be. So that could end up keeping your mind feeling like it's boring, and so you self-sabotage good love. You self-sabotage secure love. You self-sabotage your own healing because your subconscious looks for what's familiar. You have to rewire your brain for love again, the right love. So you need to take this relationship and question, why do I choose partners like this? What am I avoiding within myself? What am I avoiding within myself? Because this is about my personal growth. What do I need to see inside of myself that I haven't been seeing? Because the people we attract are not random. They're in our lives to show us what is hidden within us, what is suppressed within us. This is like the law of attraction, but it's not the law of attraction about getting the perfect car and the perfect house. It's about the brutally honest mirror that shows you your shadow. And the universe has this wicked sense of humor. Because if you're with someone who, if you are someone that people pleases, you're going to attract someone who takes advantage of the lack of your boundaries. And that's because this person's in your life to tell you to have more boundaries. So every unsuccessful relationship is a reflection saying you need to work on something in your life. Every difficult person's a catalyst for your evolution, for your change, so that you can be able to find somebody that it doesn't hit the attachment style you have, and so is not playing the loop that you've always been in a relationship with. How do we break these patterns? This is going to come in the first form of boundaries. You need to figure out what your boundaries are. You need to figure out what your deal breakers are, what is not acceptable to you anymore. You need to figure out what are your emotional boundaries. What are you not going to emotionally allow to be neglected within you? What emotions have not been discussed that you want to discuss? What part of yourself have you repressed that this relationship is shaking you to pull out of you? Is it your voice? Is it your power? Is it for you to stand up for yourself now? Is it for you to know that you are so deserving of being in your own love and light? Because this relationship is shaking you to wake you up. So some of these emotional boundaries could be you saying that I'm not going to tolerate manipulation or gaslighting. And when it happens and when it's happening, I'm going to turn around and immediately say, I'm really sorry. That sounds very manipulative to me. And I'm not going to tolerate that right now. Obviously, there's a different way to have these kinds of conversations when you're in a relationship that's with two people trying to make the relationship work versus being in a relationship with somebody that doesn't want to make the relationship work but just wants to keep you there because you benefit them. So it's you saying, I'm not okay with being manipulated. I don't appreciate you calling me these names. I'm not going to accept this anymore. And you could turn around and say, I'm also not willing to be in a relationship where we just don't have hard conversations and you're walking out all the time. So you need to be very clear in what's not okay for you. And then you need to no longer participate in those patterns. So let's say that you were in a relationship where you were in the cycle of abuse, of them hitting you and you hitting them back, of them throwing something or you throwing something, or you walking out, you slamming the door, you swearing, you name calling as well. When you set a boundary to say no more, I'm not going to allow my nervous system to be so dysregulated into those reactions anymore. You have to play your part that when that starts to happen in this relationship, that you turn around and say, I'm not willing to be a part of this anymore. Because remember, they're going to test your boundaries and see at what point can I pull you back into this loop. And you have to also be very gentle with yourself because you will be pulled back in. These are triggers that you're working. When you're learning to heal your anxious attachment, it's not an overnight job. You are going to have to breathe so deep and hard into those triggers and walk away and self-soothe and respect yourself to not react that way. Because when you start to respect yourself, you will not allow anyone to disrespect you anymore. So you have to be one-on-one with your own boundaries. You have to respect your own boundaries and teach them, I'm not breaking this for you. So you don't participate in the old patterns anymore. You know what's not acceptable and you hold that boundary strong, because you staying firm to those boundaries means they cannot come and break those boundaries with you too. They start to respect you're not going to react this way anymore, and it leaves them like a fish in the water because they don't know who you are anymore. You need to communicate your boundaries respectably, because remember, the last thing you want to do is be like them. Even though at some point in the relationship you'll almost question, I was never this person that used to scream and shout or break down or pull away or behave this way. When did I become this person? And that's part of you now stepping out of that cycle and modeling who you would love to be. How would you like to react? How would you like to respond? There are patterns in your life that are predictable, that you know of. There are situations that are going to come up. You can prepare your mind to say, how am I going to respond to this when it happens? Am I going to stop and pause and say, I'll get back to you? Or are you going to stop and pause and say, I'm not willing to have this conversation right now. I'll talk to you later. I can feel that I'm getting triggered. I don't want to react. What rules will you put in place for yourself so that you can communicate in a clear and very calm way that leaves you both feeling respectable and you learn to practice nonviolent communication? So it could be, please keep your tone down. I'm not okay with you shouting. And I want you to keep remembering, how would a secure person react to this situation? So I want you to see yourself calm. I want you to see yourself having a different expression. I want you to step into your physiology with someone secure holds and carries themselves different from the way my anxious body will. So I'm learning to rewire and practice myself to get out of this toxic relationship. So if they criticize you and they ridicule your needs and wishes and they ignore or dismiss them, you learn that, okay, well, I'm going to communicate and let you know that I'm also not okay with that. I'm also going to have boundaries now around my time. I'm going to be going to the gym. I'm going to start eating healthy. I'm going to be doing things for me that make me really happy, because I'm not going to throw all my time just into this relationship anymore at the cost of self-abandoning myself. And this is really important for anyone anxiously attached dating right now. You have the ability to throw all your people away, all your hobbies away, let go of all your boundaries, because you move into this clingy role where you are terrified that you could lose this person. And so it's very important you hold on to your autonomy. You hold on to your sense of self. And that gives you a sense of self-respect and self-worth. Then I want you to think about, what are my absolute deal breakers in a relationship? So even if you're single, what are my deal breakers? Is it name calling? Is it cheating? Is it a lack of intimacy? Is it breaking promises? Is it lying? Is it them not willing to discuss tough things? Is it them having violent behavior when things don't go their way? Is it them throwing their toys up in the air? What am I just not going to tolerate anymore? What is there no wiggle room for anymore? And I want you to keep this list on you. Write it down on your phone and keep this list on you, because this is the inner work that you need to do so that you can start to see red flags. And as you're healing your wounds, you don't turn them pink. And as you start to heal, your inner subconscious starts to trust its intuition again, because you move from feeling that I'm not enough to knowing that I am enough. I can stand up for myself. And you start to feel a beautiful, loving power over your identity, because you want to create a brand new one. Grieve all you want, the shame and the guilt of how you behaved and who you were. And take your time and be kind with yourself around that. But also hold a new vision for you to be able to pull yourself towards, because ultimately you want to be able to heal so that you learn to regulate your own nervous system, so you're not attracting partners that bring you down. Part of you recognizing some of your patterns and triggers could be writing down the last 3 people you were drawn to. And think about, what did they have in common? What emotions did they trigger in you? Was it anxiety? Was it insecurity? Was it a feeling of I'm not good enough? I want you to be able to identify the red flags you ignored, because now you know they felt familiar. So take some time out, write down the last 3 people that you were drawn to. What emotions did they trigger in you? And I want you to identify the red flags, maybe 3 to 5 that you ignored because they felt very, very familiar. And everything that you're slowly going to be doing, and as we grow on the podcast together, you will learn how to reparent yourself. You will learn how to regulate your nervous system. So you're going to teach your body how to stay calm You're going to teach your body that love does not equal chaos. We're going to learn inner child work. So we will do a podcast where we learn how to talk to the younger you and tell them that they deserve all the safe love possible. And I'll make sure that we have a meditation just for that. And I want you to remember that as you go through this journey, secure partners are going to feel so uncomfortable because they don't trigger your anxiety. They don't trigger your lack of self-worth. So you're probably going to think these people are too nice. I don't really feel the chemistry with this person, because that's your system rejecting safety. But you have to have a new rule in your life. If they make me feel calm, respected, and valued, I'm going to lean into it. If my nervous system tells me yes, I'm not fighting my own nervous system. Because toxic partners lose interest when you raise your standards and you demand real emotional availability. So instead of waiting for anyone to choose you, I want you to now choose yourself. And I want you to choose who gets access to you from today. Meaning if they pull away, you are not chasing, you're going to step back. And I want you to observe their behavior and what's arising in your body, the discomfort you're feeling in your nervous system, the trigger to scream, shout, pull away, fawn, or go numb, and just sit with that feeling. Now, I have a little homework for you, and you can pause the podcast right now and grab a notebook or write this down into your phone very quickly. But I have some beautiful journal prompts that are going to help you break the cycle and get you to work on something tonight. So the first one is, what was the first example of love you saw growing up? How did my parents or my caregivers show affection? Was it consistent or unpredictable? What toxic behaviors have I excused in the past, and why? And then what does healthy love look like to me now? I want you to be able to remember that the love you accept is a reflection of the love you believe you deserve. So you need to start believing that you deserve better. You're absolutely allowed to create a new love story, and this love story begins with you. I just want to thank you so much for being with me on this podcast and listening to this episode. And if this episode resonated with you, please DM me your biggest takeaway. I would love to hear from you. I want you to share this with someone that you think needs to hear it. And just keep following me for deeper conversations on love, attachment, and healing. Because remember why we're doing this podcast. It's all about how we can love better. And this particular episode's about how we can love ourselves better. Thank you for spending this time with me on Love Better. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who could use a little more love today. Don't forget to subscribe so we can keep growing together. You can find me on your socials, Instagram at Shazman Bank, TikTok at Shazman_bank. And I'd love to hear your thoughts and really connect with you more. Until next time, take care of your heart and remember you are worthy of love that truly feels like home.